Of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Let us pray for peace, for justice, especially for those who are searching for a peaceful country, that they be accepted, welcome. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and the hour of our death. Amen. Mary, seat of wisdom,
Pray for us.
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen. Amen.
So tonight we begin the last part of the first semester, and we study logic, we study philosophy of nature, and now we are philosophy of man. In fact, philosophy of man, if you look at the old books, is a part of philosophy of nature, because man is also in nature. Huh? Okay. So if that classical Father Wallace called that psychology, we can call that also philosophy of man, or philosophy of the human person. We can call that also anthropology, philosophical anthropology. Anthropos, means man, in Greek. Study the study of man, logos, anthropos, the man, at the philosophical point of view. Now our approach is not the psychology we have in university. It is the philosophical approach. That means we try to understand man through causality, ultimate causality. Okay? So the definition, a nominal definition, psycho, comes from the Greek psyche. Psyche means the soul. Psyche, the soul. So it's funny, in modern philosophy, modern psychology, they study the soul, but they deny the existence of the soul. And they call that psychology. Funny, like a kind of contradiction. They study psychology, but in fact, they think the soul does not exist. Okay? So what do we study in psychology? The psyche, or man. I prefer to say the object of our study for the weeks we have before Thanksgiving, because after is the exam. It is man. In fact, how do we know the rest of the world from our own knowledge? We know everything from my knowledge, no? It is through my eyes, it is through my senses, it is through my imagination, etc., that I am in contact with the universe. So it's important to know who is man, and to know the main activity of man. So the main activity of man are first to know, and secondly to tend toward the good. We call that appetite. So knowledge and appetite. Or appetition, appetite, appetition. And we have sensible appetition. That means when you are hungry, you have a sensitive or sensory appetition. And we have the intellectual appetition. We see it is the will. We tend toward the good, the will, the human will. So essentially the study of the human person is the study of his knowledge. How we know the rest of the world, the object, and how we are tending toward the good we find in those things. That is the two main central thing. Okay. So the object, it is beginning with all living organism. In fact, Saint Thomas and Aristotle first and Saint Thomas after, when they speak about psychology, they speak about any kind of manifestation of life. Of life. Where is life? Life is in every being that is growing, no? Assimilating, procreating, etc. Because a stone, is a stone a living being? No.
No.
Is a tree a living being?
No.
No. It does not multiply, it does not grow.
Yeah, it does.
A tree is a living being. Our life has meant. What is the characteristic? At first sight, what is the characteristic of life? To move. To move. Motion. No? When I was in Cameroon 20 years, at a certain time I had a cat. And that cat was he was like a dog because he was reared with, brought up with a dog. They were like two brothers, all the time together. And a day I arrived in the morning, my cat was dead. I took it by the tail. It did not move, it was like a block of cement. So I say, I don't have time because I have to teach. This afternoon I will bury my cat, poor cat. You know. When I came back in the afternoon, my cat ran toward me.
Oh,
Wow.
You know, a cat has 7 lives. Huh? He ran. I say, what happened? In fact, what happened, he, because he was a friend, he ate a rat. We have a lot of rats at us. We put poison. So the rat ate the poison, and my cat ate the rat. So he contracted the poison, but he resisted. Imagine he was dead. What we see was dead because he has no motion at all. Nothing. And suddenly he ran. He is living because he is motion. Hey, be careful. I can throw a ball. The ball is in motion. What is the difference between the motion of the ball and the motion of my cat?
because the cat has life.
Yeah, life. How I can say he has life? Well,
The
It
cat
can
can
move
move
by
he
itself.
moves by
Himself.
himself.
Yes.
He has, we call spontaneous movement. Spontaneity. That is a characteristic.
Moving within.
Yes, the motion comes from
Within.
himself. He was not kicked, no, he stand himself, he run. Okay. And now my cat ate a rat. And because he ate a rat, he assimilated the rat. But the rat was poisoned, therefore my cat was poisoned. So he assimilated. When you eat, what happened? You assimilate. And the result of that assimilation, where it is staying in you. When you study, what do? You assimilate. So the result of your activity stays within you. Not only the motion comes from you, but the motion stays in you. So that is immanent. Immanent. So the two characteristics of life, spontaneity and immanence. For example, a flower. Is a flower living? As long as the flower has its root in the ground, the flower assimilates. It grows. It can multiply. And are you obliged every morning to go in the garden and to say, okay, grow? No. The plant grows by
Itself.
They are spontaneous, and when they take the food from the ground, the soil, it is immanent. So they have life, characteristic of life. But what is the difference between the life of a flower, the life of a tree, and the life of a dog, the life of a cat? What does a cat have and a plant does not have? A nervous system. Nervous system. They have no nervous system. That is different. So and those who have a nervous system, we call that sentient. Sentient. They have senses. A flower does not have senses. Even the flower that eats a fly, it's a mechanical reaction. But a cat, a dog, a bird, they are sentient. Therefore, they have capacity to go and to attain the world around them. Okay? That is sense, and we are sentient. Okay, I come back to the text. So its beginning was all living organisms to move themselves. More recent time, now we have higher organisms, sentient life. In fact, when we study evolution, at the beginning there was very simple life. But now we are developing, and we arrive to the human person. Well, now, next paragraph. Psychology has no first principle of its own, because it is a part of natural philosophy. You remember, there is a kind of hierarchy in sciences. For example, in physics, I use mathematics. I use the principle of mathematics to study physics. In biology, I use the principle of chemistry, bases, acid, etc., to study digestion, for example. You know? So some sciences use the discovery or the principle or the conclusion of another science. It is what rational psychology does. We take what we study in philosophy of nature, for example, matter and form. And we will see that again. You know? So we use the conclusion of philosophy of nature to apply that to a special reality of nature we call the human being, human person. Okay? So I continue. Its first principles are still matter and form. Those principles are for every material being. We said that when you study philosophy of nature, every material being is constituted with matter and form. And the change of form is explaining the motion. Motion is the change of form in nature. Okay? Except that in living thing there is a special type of form. In that form is not. What is the difference between the form of a desk and the form of a flower? The flower is a living form. Here is not a living form. You know? So that when speak about form, about flower, well, it is not exactly the same thing as the form. It is a form. The form is determining the matter. The form of the flower. The life in the flower determines the matter. I cut the flower is dead. There is no more form. After a few days, it is corrupted. You know? So there is a principle informing, giving a form, a life to the flower. It's the same for man. And that we call that form. We call that the soul. The soul. We speak about man, the soul, but by analogy, we speak also about the soul of animal, because they have a principle of life, and the soul even of flowers, because they can grow, they can multiply, except when we cut them to put them in front of the Blessed Sacrament. We kill them. We are the killer of flower. Okay. Now, this form, determining the matter. What is the matter? It is the body for man. It is for a flower, the atom of carbon, etc. So inform primary matter as to render it not only corporeal, but also animated. Not only the form determines matter to be something material, existing as a material thing, but more than that, giving something more than simple material existence, giving him also life. Because a living is also a material. We are material, no? It's matter. You can weigh yourself on the scale. But we have more than that. We have animated. Animated comes from Latin, anima. Anima in Latin means in English
Soul.
soul, the soul. The soul.
Anima.
Anima Christi, sanctify me. Soul of Jesus Christ, sanctify me. Okay? So now, next paragraph. What we study during this class? Well, I have told you we studied the two main operations of any sentient, That means having a nervous system. That means the knowledge. Your dog, knowledge. Okay, knowledge. Well, okay. Your dog knows also. He knows you. He recognizes you. Recognizes you. Your cat it makes the difference. It makes between a mouse and a plastic mouse. He makes the dog of my confrère in Cameroon. Maybe I told that to you. And the statue, ivory statue.
Yes, he said it. Yeah.
No, you have ivory statue and plastic statue.
Yeah.
And the dog was able to distinguish the authentic ivory. He chewed them. He destroyed all the statues, but he did not touch the plastic statue. The dog knows. Yes, a knowledge. He knows you. He knows his name. If you say Nani, my dog, Nani, Nani will come. The other are not interested with me. He would come because he recognized his name.
So the Catholic dog.
Okay? And the second is appetite. So our desire for the good, our tendencies to some good appetition. The human soul, we study a different power. Well, the power of the soul, they are the intellect and the will, and also our senses, sight, etc., imagination, memory. And finally, the relationship between our body and our soul. So that is the four parts of our studies. Okay? Now let us go to number 22, life and soul. First, let us say a word about the word activity. Activity comes from act, potency and act. Another word for activity or activity is operation. Operation. To operate.
Can we use the word profession? Can we use the word profession?
Profession, that is, it is the state of the one who does something special, like a carpenter. It's a profession. Okay.
Oh, perfection.
Oh, perfection. Oh, excuse me. No, perfection. Perfection can be in operation, but perfection first is in the being. If in the being, you must exist first to do something correct, to have some skill. First, you have to be an I. And when I am an I, after that I can act. I can act.
Perfection is in the pure act. Perfection is in the pure act.
The perfection.
In God,
Yeah,
own
perfect. Yeah, pure act. Pure. What is the first perfection? The first act is to exist. The first perfection. The first act. But when we speak about activities, we don't speak about act. We speak about the operation of the being that exists that here, that is an I. Okay? So, I told you, first life appears as self-movement, spontaneity. Spontaneity. Self-movement. That means I move myself. That is the first characteristic. Not necessarily local motion, because a tree, a sequoia, for 1,000 years, 800 years, he is growing, assimilating, etc. He is a living. He is a living. Okay? Self-motion. Subimoto. La capacité of an organism to move itself from potentiality to activity. He was a little tree, now he's a giant. That passes from potency to act. From potentiality, what is that? The quality of being in potency, to activity, the fact of to be realized completely. He is realized. For example, you were a baby, after that you were a boy, after that you were, finally you are what you are now. So there is a self-movement. And that does not come from outside, no, come from
Within.
within. Okay? It is the empirical notion of life, okay? Spontaneous motion. It is, in the scientific approach, well, according to Claude Bernard. Claude Bernard is a French biologist, and he has a colleague also in Germany who has a similar teaching. It is Hans Driesch. Something like that. They put the tune of it. Hans Driesch is interesting for us because he was the teacher of Jacques Maritain. You know, Jacques Maritain is a great neothomist. He's the one who popularized St. Thomas. He did not teach the Summa, but he wrote in word people can understand the Summa. So he, you know, the people know St. Thomas, know Aristotle, through Maritain, the same way I teach Aristotle I don't go to the text themselves. I try to make you understand what they teach, okay? It's the same when we teach catechism. Huh? We try to make students understand the teaching of the church, the teaching of Jesus, etc. Okay? So those Claude Bernard and Hans Driesch, they are biologists. In fact, Jacques Maritain, after his conversion, or before, I don't remember, he went to Germany for 1 year to study biology. He was a philosopher, but he said, I have to study biology. When he was there, he discovered through the teaching in laboratory that we cannot reduce life only to matter. There is more than matter in life. In an animal, there is more than matter. And they call that the entelechy. A principle of, or telos, in Greek, means end, finality. There is a finality in every animal. And that finality is the matter, if you want, of their spontaneity and their life. In fact, he did not use the word soul. He used the word entelechy. But in fact, entelechy corresponds to what St. Thomas called a soul, anima. Okay? Bon, okay. So, immanent activity and transitive activity. So the activity that first we see, it is transitive, spontaneous. That is the first thing. If you want to, a man, you see a man on the street, on the floor, if he does not move at all, you call 911. If he is able to move, because he drank too much, we say he's not dead. Huh? Okay. But if he is not moving, we say, hey, dangerous. Huh? So, first manifestation, it is transitivity or operation, activity. We call that also sometimes transient. Huh? Transient or transitive activity. Trans means to pass from one thing to another thing, to pass transport, to take from a port to another port. Okay, okay, translation from a language to another language. Okay, so that is, but I will not insist on that because it is so clear. But a thing, if we have activity, action, we have also passion. You remember the categories, action and passion. So if man is moving, there must be a reason for that. You know, if the cat is standing up, there must be a reason for that. There must be a principle making the cat standing up and running after a mouse. You know, then we call that the soul, the form of the body. The soul. That is, we see. But what is not so clear, it is the immanence. the characteristic of life is transit, but immanence. Immanere, in Latin, manere means to stay in, maneo in Latin. Huh? Maneo. And you have the verb mansum, the participle supen, huh? Or past participle, mansum. You have in English mansion. Huh? Mansion is a big house where the people stay, no? Manere, to remain, to stay. Remain comes from that. Remain, la manere, to stay. So immanence, that means the fruit of the activity stays in the living. That is the second characteristic of life. So two characteristics, spontaneity, self-movement, and immanence. That means the result of my activity stays in me. So self-movement, okay, I spoke about that. Go to, at the bottom of the page 145. We spoke about Claude Bernard. In Claude Bernard, he said life is defined by a characteristic. In fact, we know things through their activity. How I can know you know Spanish when you speak Spanish? How I can know you play the piano when you play the piano? I have no thermometer to measure your degree of capacity of playing the piano now. We see things to their operation. Jesus said in the Gospel, we know a tree to its fruit. Okay? So 4 things characterize every living. First, organization. In fact, we start from one cell, and the cell multiply, and the cell organize. Form a heart, form eyes, from one cell. That is characteristic of organization. You take a seed of corn, you put that in the soil, and after a few weeks you have a little stem. Find a stem, and finally you have a corn, big corn, like with many seeds. Okay? Secondly, nutrition or assimilation. We spoke about that. Third, reproduction. So reproduction is a characteristic of life. Every sentient being, flower, animal, man has the capacity of reproducing themselves. And finally, evolution. But be careful. Here, evolution does not mean the passage from the monkey to man. Here, evolution means, in fact, the metabolism, the modification, the transformation of the being from the first cell to his mature being, a mature status. Okay? For example, the fact, for example, when I am young, and I am growing, I am changing. My voice was like that. My voice is like that. You know, everything that is kind of evolve. We evolve. We change, if you want. Change. We transform. At the same time, we should progress. Not necessary, because when we go older, we have the impression we regress. So, in fact, it is. We call that in metabolism. Metabolism, it is the change of the being through his history. The history of the book. That I will think every living has a history from its conception to its death. And that is the evolution. Okay? Don't forget about evolution. So 4 characteristics. First characteristic, organization. You have organ, many organs. But the organization made from within, never forget. Secondly, nutrition, assimilation from within. Reproduction comes from within, and evolution comes from within. In fact, it is interesting to see that the 4 characteristics are self-motion and also immanent. The 4 characteristics imply a self-motion, motion coming from myself, and also the effect, the benefit is, even for the reproduction, is the continuation of the species. So if you go now next page, immanence, So immanence, in fact, it is a self-perfection, a self-perfecting action. I perfect myself, and the fruit of that perfection stays in me. When you study, what is perfect? Perfect means to be more complete. Perfect comes two words, per and facere. Facere means to make. To make complete, to make all. Perfect means if all. Okay? So that when I eat, for example, it is to make myself perfect as a man, to be in good health. If I study, it's to know the truth, So we are tending, in fact, toward perfection. We are tending toward our perfection. And in Greek, tending is telos. And. You understand why Mr. Claude Bernard said we have a principle that makes us tending toward achievement, self-achievement, self-perfection, self-accomplishment. In fact, when we study, when you eat, it is to become a complete human being. So you can ante, and mean inside, in, and in Greek mean in, te, telos, and tele, ki, the ki is the verb to have, eikein in Greek. Eikein means to have. So that means, interesting. And that means living, have, and then inside, within them. In that end, inside within them is the cause of their activity. So he did not say soul, he did not say anima, but they say enteliki. That enteliki, in fact, it is the principle of life. It's a principle of life. And here life is manifested to that tendency toward the full realization of the being. You have a little cat. It's beautiful, a little cat. But a little cat is not for all his life a little cat. He must become a perfect cat, able to run after mice. A dog, oh, the little kitty, oh, yes, but he must be a good watcher, a good guardian. You have a little calf, a little calf. He must become a big oxen or big calf because we need good steak. So, in fact, there is a principle in us that makes us tending, working toward our full accomplishment. It's interesting to see those people, they were not philosophers, and they discover that we have a final end. Everything, every being has a final end. And more than that, the final end is not outside. The final end is already inside. And the end is not from outside, it is from within. And that principle, we call that anima. What is to animate? To animate is to give a soul. To give a soul, to make the people active, to produce something for an end. Okay. Now I go to the next paragraph. Therefore, we can define life as, that's very important, Father Jolivet, or Monseigneur Julius, a French philosopher. Spontaneous and immanent movement proper to living being. Very simple definition. But in that definition, you have everything. You have spontaneity, you have immanence, you have motion, and you have that put the living apart the rest. The characteristic of the living is that. A tree is a living because it has a spontaneous, immanent motion, a movement. What are the level of immanence? Well, immanence is not the same for everything. The life, if you want, is not the same for everything. You have immanence activity, come like to nourish, assimilating, and growing, maturing, reproducing, etc. And maintaining a substantial unity, identity through change, through period of time. That is important also. You know, a flower is a little flower, become a big flower. A tree is a little tree, it become a sequoia. A man is a little boy, he become a giant, etc. So, and it is the same. So there must be a principle of identity under the change. So the soul, in fact, is the principle of identity. My body changed, but my soul, my form is the same. Okay? Animals, they have more than activity like plants. They have cognition and appetition. An animal know and an animal desire. When the lion is hungry, he stands up and he goes searching for a gazelle, for a good meal, you know, for him, for it, and for the children, and his wife also. So that is cognition and appetition. And in fact, appetition comes after cognition. I cannot desire what I do not know. It's the principle of advertising. We make people know a product to make them buy the product. Okay? That is not difficult. In fact, those, if you go to the knowledge and appetition, in fact, it is necessary to survive, especially for animals who can move, like cat, dog, to assure their survival. A tree is moving through its roots, you know. A tree is incredible how a tree can survive even in rock. And you see its root is searching for ground, for earth, for soil. But it is more clear in the case of animals. So an animal has senses to assure its survival, to know, and knowing to be attracted towards some action. If there was no cognition, if there was no appetition, there will be no survival. We survive because we have appetition. And we have appetition because we know something good, something good. Okay? So appetition making them respond to their environment. In fact, the object of my knowledge is my environment. That means everything, material, objective. And the object of my appetite is what I know in the environment as something good. The being is, no, I can know a being because I discover in that being something good. I can desire the being. I desire a being because I know that being is good for me. Okay, we will come to that when we study emotion and we study the human will, free will. Okay? So I go to the next paragraph, comparison between the living organic body and non-living. Well, in living, self-movement and immanence, the two characteristics. Because organisms move themselves to full perfection and maturity. The desire of education, for example, for men is to lead a boy, a girl, to its maturity, to its perfection as a man, perfection as a woman, and to be able also to arrive to that perfection through the contact with others. When we say others, be careful. It is not only the person; it is the whole environment, nature, if you want, trees, plants, etc. Wind, the water. Okay. But the non-living organic, they cannot assimilate. Therefore, they cannot grow. A stone does not grow. Well, can grow except through. How do we say? I forget the word. When we attach things to that. For example, the coral in the sea. We attach things. Augmentation. But only the living is able to The progress of the living being comes from within. Comes from within. It is true for animal and for man. But if animal, they do that through their instinct. Man do that through his intellect. Man can know the end of his life. The cat does not know, but he follows its instinct. He does not know that God created the cat to protect man against mice, for example.
Yeah.
He does know that, but he follows his nature, his instinct, you know. Okay. On page 147, here you have a very good synthesis of what I told to you since the beginning of the class, about life, motion, life. First, it is a movement, passage from potency to act. Secondly, with regard to its origin, it is a movement beginning spontaneously from within. But be careful, that motion is not absolutely spontaneous. Why? Because when I am in motion towards something, because there is something, no? That means, for example, if your cat stands up and runs after a mouse because there is a mouse, or he is searching for a mouse because he feels hungry, or he smells something, you know, that means yes, it's true, we move from ourselves. I know, I assimilate from myself. When you study, it is you, it's not the teacher who study, it is you. Therefore, it is a spontaneous motion. But you have an object, no? Can you see? Nothing. No. Can you eat? Nothing, no. So when you eat, it is a spontaneous motion. But you must have something, a piece of meat or bread or, you understand that? So it's the reason why we say it is a spontaneous motion, but not absolute. That means the subject in his action depends on an object. Subject, act, object. That means there is no pure subjectivity. And there is no pure objectivity. That means I depend on an object. I move myself because I know there is an object. So therefore, it is spontaneous, but at the same time, it is depending on an object. Okay? I continue, the origin. Finally, with regard of the term, the end, and that stroke Mr. Claude Bernard, anteliki, tell us the end. The activity is said to be immanent. That means the fruit first, it is within me. For example, you study chemistry or physics. You study that. Or you study to be a doctor, a physician. First you have to assimilate. And if you assimilate, after you can express that. That means the same thing as the origin of the spontaneous motion was not absolutely absolute, it was depending on an object. The same thing, the immanence also is not, it is not only to stay within me. It is also a part will go outside of me. For example, you think, that is an immanent activity. But you talk. That is a transitive activity. That means, essentially, life is spontaneous motion, but not purely, I must have an object. But it is not the object that provokes life. I can put ice cream under the nose of a dead person, and that person will not react. No? Because there is no. So the spontaneity does not come from the ice cream, come from the living being. If a boy reacts in front of ice cream, it is because he is living. But he will not react if there was no ice cream. either present or in his imagination, you know. It's the same for immanence. The fruit of my thinking stay in me, but I can also express that in words. I can express that through action, etc. Okay? It is what we say here. Huh? So nevertheless, that is not absolutely immanent. Huh? So the act of seeing depends on the color of a thing, but at the same time, the immanent activity is not absolutely staying in me. Huh? My knowledge does not stay in me forever. It stays in me, but I can share with others. Huh? Okay? Something I have to explain here. Nevertheless, that activity is not absolutely immanent, because we meet a very general metaphysic principle which asserts whoever is moved by another. Quid movitur, ab alio movitur. Everything that moves is moved by another. There must be a cause of motion. A cause of motion. And remember what Mr. Antiliki. What is telos? It is the motive. And the motive is also a cause. The cause is not necessarily a person outside of me. It can be also the motive of my activity. I am attracted. And most of the time, the motive of my activity is at the same time the good I want to attain. No? If I want to eat ice cream, that is the end. It is because I like that, and at the same time, my desire for ice cream will make me move. You know? The aspect of good is at the same time the motive of my action, a part of my action. You know? It is what we say here. Huh? So that means every motion, immanent or spontaneous, must have a sufficient reason. Huh? A sufficient reason. Why I am assimilating to grow, to be mature. Why I am moving to attain some good. In fact, every action, immanent or spontaneous, must have a cause, must have an end. The end is, it is what I tending toward, the good, but the cause is yourself. The cause of the motion comes from within. And that, if there is motion in a body, there must be a principle of action, and that we call that the soul. In fact, we know the extent of the soul through these activities. We cannot know the soul directly. Can I see your soul when I look at you? I see you are living or you have a soul only when you are active, spontaneously, and also if I discover that you are growing, there must be a cause for that, you know. Okay? So there is always a cause. And we never forget that the cause is not only extrinsic, the cause is intrinsic, and the cause of that spontaneity, the cause of that immanence is the soul, principle of life. Okay? I continue. A problem. How this general principle is saved in the case of living being? The answer, a part of the living being moves the other part. For example, my will can move my intellect. We saw that when we studied the analysis of St. Thomas. My will can say to my intellect, pay attention, study, assimilate, you know, etc. So immanent activity is proper to the living being. We already spoke about that. And I go just after that. Living beings move themselves and their activity is oriented toward the proper good. Telos, oriented, the end, toward the proper good. The genuine immanence stays only in the intellect. And the absolute immanence exists only in God. Because only God is absolutely immanent. Even in our immanence, we depend on something. God depends on nobody. Okay? We have a relative immanence. because there is always for us a passage from potency to act. And when you progress because you assimilate food, or because you study, or because you pray, spiritual life, and that immanence is passage from potency to act. We are not perfectly complete. We become whole, W-H-O-L-E, perfect, whole, complete, integral, little by little. Okay? Now the soul. So the soul is the principle of life in living thing, the enteliki, the principle making the thing attain their end. That is, in fact, the soul is the, apparently for biologists like Mr. Rich or Mr. Claude Bernard, the role of the soul is to orient the activity of the living toward its end. But orienting, more than that, is animating, giving what he needs as energy to stand up, spontaneous activity, and also to assimilate. In fact, we need a principle. That principle is the soul. Because we cannot find, when the flower is growing, it is growing from within. Yeah, we cannot every morning take, hey, okay, grow. No, the flower grows by itself. So there must be, the principle is intrinsic. And the principle is known through the effect. So the effect, activity and immanence is caused by the soul. And when there is no life, there is no more spontaneity and immanence. You can feed a dead body, it will not assimilate. You can, it is one of the proof of a death, when they give an injection, and if the liquid goes out, that person is dead. That is a criterion they use in Africa, in our dispensary, to see if the person is dead or not dead. If the person can assimilate the water or the product, it is living. She is living. He is living. But if you reject the product, he is dead. Because he can no more be able to assimilate. Life, what the characteristic of life is assimilation and growth. So if we grow, if we assimilate, if we are in action, spontaneous activity, there must be a reason. If that reason does not come from the body, because the body by itself cannot do that. The proof, when we die, the body is there, but he has no activity. So there must be a principle of activity. Okay? If that principle must be different from the body, it must be immaterial. Immaterial. Okay? So the soul, where there is life, there is soul. Many times we put one for the other. In fact, the soul is the cause. The soul is to the body like the cause. Yes, the cause to the effect. So, if the body is moving, it is because there is a soul. So the soul is the cause of the spontaneity and the cause of the motion. But we cannot see the soul directly. We see the soul indirectly through its activity, the activity. So now, so soul and life are first principle of immanence and activity. And soul and life, life, we can say also, make another analogy, I prefer. We can see the life is to the soul like the effect to the cause. In fact, the life is better. You can suppress the other analogy, it's not very good. That is good. If I have life, spontaneity, immanence, it is because the soul is here. The effect is produced by the cause. So the causality here. Life is caused by the soul, effect is caused by the cause. You know? We see life through we see life. Life, we can see life through the effect. But we can say if there is life, there must be a principle of life. And that principle of life is the soul. So if we deduce, and we have no direct knowledge of the soul, of the soul. Okay? If we have no direct knowledge of life, we know life through these effects. Okay? Now, distinction necessary to define the soul. Here we have some distinction. It is a recall from what we studied before in the other chapter, in logic also. First, distinction whether existed substance and accident. You remember that? Substance and accident. Okay, I don't insist. Secondly, now substance can be matter in potency. Pure matter, we say, does not exist. Can be the form, the actuality, determining the matter. In fact, the reality is the substance is a composite. The substance is a composite of a matter and form, body and soul. Okay? My substance is a composite. So my substance is to be a rational animal. My I is a rational animal. That is my substance. And that substance is composed with soul and body. Another word, the word actual, actuality, act. Passed from potency to act, from potentiality to actuality. So there is two kinds of actuality, two kinds of act. You have the first act, or the first actuality, and the second actuality. Okay? So the first actuality, it is in regard of knowledge, operation. It is the knowledge possessed, or the order, or in the law order of existence is to first to be, or in the knowledge what I possess, and from what I possess, after that I will act some activity. So here the knowledge I possess now, possess, and from that knowledge I possess, I will go to some activity, because I know I will act. So the first actuality is to exist. The second actuality is to operate. You see? To being and action, activity, being. So when we speak about the first actuality of a thing, in regard of existence, is to exist. In regard of knowledge, is to exist as knowing something. I know something, and from that knowing something, I can reflect on that second level of knowledge. Here we apply that to knowledge. In fact, the word actuality can be applied to many things. Here it is applied to knowledge. It can be applied to existence. I exist. The first actuality is to exist. Secondly, because I exist, because I have an essence, I will have some operation. Second activity. Okay. Now, second model distinction. A body can be natural or artificial. That is not difficult. Natural, artificial, made by man. Okay. Now, a body, it can be living or non-living. Now, when you know those terms, after we can precise what is the soul. So, as a living body is a natural body, a natural body and substance. That means, if you look at that here, a living body, is a body that is natural, is not artificial. My car is not a living body. Even if it moves, it cannot assimilate, it cannot reproduce, and it moves because of mechanic. There is something moving it. It does not move by itself. Apparently, mobile by itself. But in fact, we know it moves because there is an explosion in the motor, and the motor moves the wheels, and the wheels move the car. Okay. is not purely, is not, you know, a car is not made with organs. Because what is the difference between organs and motors? Organs, they are linked with one another in one reality. Your eyes, your ear, your hand are one reality. And if your car, the motor, you can change the motor, you can change the tire, you can change the they are accidentally united. But your body, your sense, your powers are substantially united. There is one substance. You have many powers, you have one substance. In a car, you have many parts, but you don't have one substance. You have a temporal, accidentally, you have many pieces together, but you can separate that after, okay? They are not by nature one substance. A car is not by nature one. It is made by man. It is artificial. Artificial. So since a living body is an actually existing thing, it is a substance of a composite. My substance, I, is composed with a body and soul. I am not a pure soul. I am not a pure body. I am a composite of body and soul. In my quality, my quantity, all the rest depend on those. I have a rational animal. So if I have to act according to my nature, I will have activity from my soul. I will have activity from my body. Okay? So I can say my body is the matter and my soul is the form. Okay? So now next paragraph. The soul is the form or actuality. It is that gives to the body is perfection as a man. I am a man because I am animated, determined by a human soul. I am determined by a principle, a form. And that form, it makes me a human being. I'm not determined because I have a body. My body is determined by my soul. And when I die, my body will be many, many, many things. Many things. Okay. Now, life activities themselves, etc., are actuality of the second sense, the second actuality. That means they are operation. So the first activity of life is to exist as a composite. And after that, because I have a composite, first I exist as a body and soul. Now, secondly, second activities are the operation coming depending on my body, like to eat, for example, or on my soul, like to think, like to will. So first act, I exist. Second, I operate. Operation are second actuality. First actuality is to exist. We see that in metaphysics. We come back on metaphysics. Okay. Now I go, it's just at the middle. To say that the soul is the first actuality is to say that the soul is a substantial form. Substantial form. I mean, the soul gave me to be one with two things. I am one substance, one substance with two things. Body and soul, but they are one substance. For Descartes does not accept that. Descartes does not accept that. Okay? So life, activity, presuppose soul and body. Okay, I go. Next page. Well, I spoke already about Antiquity. I don't want to come on that. A second definition of the soul. Given is in terms of formal effects. It is the primary principle whereby we live, sense, move, and understand. Primary, to distinguish from the various operations. My primary, it is my body and my soul, my I. My secondary is my operation. But it is only to repeat. And you have a very good here definition by Father Woodner. Okay, I go to the kind of souls. So you have the soul of vegetative, page 151, trees, plant. They have no no sentient system, therefore they cannot communicate with external world. Huh? You have the sensitive soul, sensitive, the soul that animates a body with a nervous system. It is the case of animal, page 151 in the middle. Huh? Okay, and finally you have the intellective soul. It is the man who performs activities that make him totally a part of the rest of creation. So you can read that by yourself. In fact, if you go just at the bottom of the page, in the middle of the last paragraph, powers are intellect and will function independently of material organ. We will see that when we study intellect and will. We study that we can, through our intellect, abstract and go above matter and have a life independent of matter. It's the same for the will. I can dominate material reality. I can control my instinct. And that is a proof that I am not attached to matter. I am transcending. My soul is transcending matter. If my soul is transcending matter, my soul is spiritual. And if my soul is spiritual, it is immortal. The immortality of the soul is based on the spirituality, and the spirituality is based on the operation of the soul. When the soul is able to operate, not to depend as an efficient cause, first efficient cause, principal efficient cause. We see that in the abstraction. When we abstract, we don't depend on matter. We detach from matter. And finally, page 152, you have the power of the soul. St. Thomas speaks about the path of the soul. He speaks about the path of the soul. In fact, when St. Thomas speaks about the parts of the soul, he speaks about the faculty, intellect, the will, our senses, internal senses, external senses, the part of the soul. It does not express that soul is material, no. But the soul has many functions, many functions. My soul animates my mind to think, animates my will and to decide, but at the same time my soul animates my eyes, animates my imagination. My soul is animating my hands, my leg, my mouth. My soul is not only animating my mind, my body, all that is animated by my soul. Sometimes there is a spirituality, a little bit disincarnated. No? The body is not important, only the soul. But don't forget, my soul is one with my body. And my soul cannot act if there is no participation with my body. I cannot know if I don't have sense knowledge. I cannot know what is a thing if I have no experience of the thing to my senses. We study that next week when we study the intellection. So that is very important, the unity of the living. And we are one, body and soul. And both are constituting my substance. I am not only a spirit, but Descartes, in fact, is one of the most responsible for that division. When he says, for example, I think, therefore I exist. Therefore, the existence of man is reduced to think. But it's more than that. I eat many things. I have senses, sensations. Otherwise, if I think, I like an angel, I am God. There is a difference between me and God. No, I am incarnated in the body. And that incarnation, that fact, I am one with my body, that makes my spiritual life is linked also with my body. A saint that understands that very well is Saint Ignatius of Loyola. When if you follow the spiritual exercises, he insists on the participation of senses, memory, imagination in the meditation. Because we have to meditate with our whole being. We have to pray with our whole being. We cannot separate say, oh, I am the chapel, I am only a soul. No, I pray with my whole body. It's the reason why the liturgy is the participation of the body. And when we talk, we express our thought, we use our body, we are one. We are not two. The body is substantially a part of my reality, my I. I am a body and soul. That is important because when we die, the body disappears. But my soul continues to be the soul of a body. That means it is convenient that a day the soul found again is its body. And that body will be my body forever. Interesting. And the theory of Aristotle agrees with the teaching of the resurrection. The theory of Plato cannot. Because Plato, the body is an obstacle. The body is a cave. The body impedes man from knowing perfectly the truth. For Aristotle, on the contrary, we need the body even to know God. We know God from our body through analogy. The analogy is produced first by senses. So next page, last page, page 152, the power of the soul, I spoke about that. They are also called potencies. The power are in potency to act. Remember, we have the subject, the act, and the object. And we saw that between the subject we have the power, and the power are perfected by the habits. All that is in my eye, and the power are there. They are in potency to do many things. My intellect is in potency to study many things. My will is in potency to desire many things. Okay? So that is the foundation of freedom is there. Because I am a potency to desire many things, I am not determined by nothing, by something. Nothing can determine myself. We see that soon. So, power, act, and object. Power, act, and object. So, the power of the soul are in potency to act. And when I pass from potency to act, that is, I realize I am, I determine, what is potency to act is to acquire a new form, a new perfection. When you do something, you accomplish something, then you acquire something. In fact, I did not study that with you, but that here is the foundation of what we call the personality. My personality, as a person, we are equal. But as a person, we have powers. We don't exercise our power the same way. We don't develop our power the same way. We don't do action of the same way. All those actions we do make us different from one another. The habit we acquire to do something, for example, to play the piano, to write, to speak Spanish, etc., all those things are perfecting our person. They are not our person, they are our personality. So the personality of someone depends on the development of the power. The more I develop my power, and what is that? Virtues. The virtue, intellectual virtues, or moral virtues. Develop that. The more I have a personality, the more and more perfect, more and more O-W-H-O-L-E, perfect, complete. Okay, okay, we take a little rest and we come back after